Jai Hind everybody. When we conceived this lecture to draw the linkages between Indo-Pacific and the military-industrial complex, the Trump tariff was not announced. So yesterday it has set a different tone to the new subject, including a lot of options being generated by people about the next Quad summit, which is supposed to take place in India, whether once is going to come or it is not going to take place at all, how the whole thing is going to shape up. And as I was entering, I was seeing the news where Pakistan has announced some historic trade deal with the USA today itself. So a lot of flux is there in the geopolitical domain as well as geoeconomics domain. And Operation Sindoor has already taught us that the technology is one thing where we need to be having the sovereign capability. So given all these things which are happening in the world war, I think India can no longer rely either of the countries in the world. Today, if you see the Russian interaction with China, where China is our potent adversary, enhanced engagement of Russia with Pakistan, and number of other things happening. US, whom we are trying to quote the way it is behaving in the Trump regime. So finally, it is that famous saying that we have to stand on our own is the only dictum which is going to stay and be with us. So today we are fortunate to have Colonel Dr. D. Lakshmana and a professor from IIT Roper and good friend who has been supporting us more than a month now. And the third speaker, probably she is en route and weather permitting, she will join us. Otherwise, we'll manage with these two. So may I now request Manish to introduce the speaker formally, please.
Good morning, everyone. Today, our guest, Mr. Virbhadra Singh Rawat, is a professor of practice at IIT Roper. He is an ex-services officer with 24 years of distinguished service. He was also coordinator defense manufacturing for government of Uttarakhand. He has held varied roles in leadership, security and procurements in the services. He has served in the prestigious National Security Guards. He has held important appointments in services dealing with planning, monitoring and executing various capital and revenue acquisition projects for the armed forces. He has been awarded Chief of Army Staff Commendation for explanatory services and General Officer Commanding-in-Chief Commendation for his distinguished service to the nation. He is adept at evolving new policies and processes, defining existing ones, and enduring compliance towards delivering business value through optimal resource utilization. He has been actively involved in planning and policy execution for Uttarakhand Aerospace and Defense Industrial Policy 2020. He has been involved in capability building in Uttarakhand state for setting up of defense industries, supporting startups in defense manufacturing, and has immense knowledge of working in Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Home, Department of Science and Technology, industries, including Foreign OEM Industries Association, Ordnance Factories, Defense PSUs, and state government for defense manufacturing. He is mentoring various startups in defense technology, Industry 4.0, aerospace security, AI and ML, and robotics sector across India. Our second guest is Colonel Dr. D. Lakshmana Kumar, is an alumnus of Indian Military Academy and the Military Institute of Technology. He is a distinguished infantry officer with over 25 years of service and extensive operational experience. His career includes deployments in notable operations such as Operation Vijay, Kargil War, Operation Meghdut, Siachen, Operation Parakram, Operation Rakshak, Operation Rhino, Operation Orchid, and the UN Peacekeeping Mission. As a UGC NET qualified research scholar in strategic affairs at the prestigious General School of International Affairs, His doctoral research focused on the narrative of the 1962 Sino-Indian conflict. His previous research has also explored significant areas including China's history, its strategic trajectory, and the Indo-Pacific region.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today's topic is on the net security consumer to provider. That is what India aspires to be, and therefore aligning India's Indo-Pacific policy to self-reliance in defense industry. This is one area where nobody has actually explored. However, as we will show you, that it actually converges very naturally. So therefore, there was a need which we felt that this area needs to be explored further so that there can be accordingly changes in the policy level so that this is more aligned to each other. So without wasting time, we know what Indo-Pacific is, and can we have the next slide, please? It's not moving. Yeah. So as we all know, the region of Indo-Pacific encompasses from east of Africa till the central and the western Pacific Ocean. So this entire region actually is a very vast region. I did not go into details, but if you look at the view file, there are 38 countries, 65% of the world's population and 62% of the world's GDP is here. That itself makes it the most important region of the world. And militarily speaking, this region also has huge amount of territorial disputes, from that to the privacy kind of a security threat, which I will be covering later also, the number of hotspots which are there. And when we talk about the non-military aspects, this is the region which has the Coastal Triangle, which I'm sure most of us know. That's the most important hotspot of the world as far as the biodiversity is concerned. Apart from this, as you can see the statistics, because of the kind of trade which happens here, this is the region which is going to shape the future of the world. So a lot depends on what happens in Indo-Pacific. And that's the reason that India also recognized that this is the region which requires to be focused on, along with to contribute to the stability of this region. We also require to have self-reliance in our defense industry. And that's the reason that we finally decided to explore this topic today per se. Next. Yeah. So this is how we will be covering it. First, we'll briefly give you what India's Indo-Pacific strategy, what do we mean by multilateralism and rule-based order, what exactly it entails to be a net security provider, and how our defense exports can actually influence the stability in this region, and the challenges with respect to the policy level things which are there as on today. And then we finally come to the most important part, which is the policy recommendations. We will be deliberating on only 6 policy recommendations, which I hope that CENJOWS, being what it is, the institution, it will be able to carry it forward. Coming on to India's Indo-Pacific strategy. This region, the India's Indo-Pacific strategy has been defined at various means for various people, and Indo-Pacific per se means different things for different countries. But our External Affairs Minister, Mr. Jaishankar, very beautifully put it, that it might mean different to different people, but for India, it is the next logical step. So there is no grand standing on this. It is something which we have been following it up as from look east to then act east. And from there, this becomes the next logical step. So that's how he describes it. So to have a free, open and rule-based order, this is what India envisages to have in Indo-Pacific. With that, we will achieve a stability in the region, for which we will ensure that we contribute to this. And therefore, it contributes to the overall growth of the entire region. And that's how we have been, our Prime Minister have been emphasizing that it is a all-encompassing and everyone's growth. So that is the basic thing. When we look at it devoid of all the other nuances, it basically means that it's a all-encompassing growth for everyone. So that's the vision. And we emphasize that it has to be based on an international cooperation without leading to groupism, because we also want to maintain the strategic autonomy. And we firmly believe that if we get into, or even others get into a military alliances kind of a thing, ultimately that will lead to a war. And therefore, we not just advocate our maintaining strategic autonomy, we want that everyone should maintain their strategic autonomy, and thereby ensuring that everyone is not compelled to take decisions which are not in favor of their particular nation. So it involves a multi-pronged approach, from economic ties to infrastructure development, HATR missions, because we have always been the first respondent, at least as far as Indian Ocean region is concerned. How now we want to expand it further. Now, we have enunciated a number of measures which we'll be covering later, but this is the gist. When we say when it all started, when our Prime Minister stated this, you can go in the view file and read through it. I'm not going for the paucity of time, but basically what it entails, it calls for maritime and airspace to remain free, open and secure. And all the disputes, we advocate that it should be peacefully settled. So it should not be with force. The moment anyone starts becoming aggressive without naming a country, it will lead to a regional instability. And our Prime Minister very clearly mentioned that it is not against a particular country or someone, and the centrality of ASEAN remains there. Because that is where the center of gravity of the entire Indo-Pacific is. So therefore, ASEAN remains central in our focus too. That's when we also started Act East policy and all. So this is the gist of the India's Indo-Pacific strategy. Now, how do we go forward from there? So we enunciated even before around 12 years, 10 years back, just after the present government came into power, Sagar was enunciated, and the key pillars were maritime interest and security, building partner capacity. Here we were not focused on just our own interest. We were focused that everyone should grow and everyone should have the capacity to secure themselves. So we were investing in building the partners' capacity also. Regionally, it should be a collective action, not a hegemony, someone asserting his hegemony. And it should be a sustainable development. It should not lead to dependency and people or the countries getting into debt trap. We didn't want that. We advocate that everyone should have a sustainable development model. And then, of course, freedom of navigation. The international waters should remain free for all, and all countries should enjoy the freedom of navigation. And from there, gradually, this year, Prime Minister around again in March 2025 enunciated the Mahasagar policy, which, as you can see in the view foil, it only enhances the scope of the Sagar, which was started around 10 years back. Now, on ground, the execution part, how it started, when we first announced it in 2018, the Indo-Pacific strategy. In 2019, the MEA created an Indo-Pacific division under the MEA, and the whole focus was on integrating the entire coastal surveillance system. New projects were launched. Quad was revived in 2017, and then it was taken forward. So all these activities simultaneously started, and MEA had a more focused approach with this division. And then Quad, of course, took it to the next level with US, Australia, Japan, and India coming together. And it remains a non-military alliance with no defined particular framework per se. But like our External Affairs Minister said, because there was a lot of questions, what exactly Quad is leading to and how it is going to be a military alliance or not. So our Foreign Affairs Minister, he very clearly said there is no requirement of getting into the military alliance per se. And there is lot which we can achieve from all other aspects, from climate to disaster management to all other cooperation to port development. So there are a lot of things which we can still do. So, and which we are still doing, like what the DG brought out about the importance of fraud. Now, coming on to the hotspots in the region, which we talked about earlier also. This region has got 7 of the 10 largest army of the world. And it also has 6 nuclear powers. And it has got number of hotspots. Can I focus on this? No, okay. Doesn't matter. Starting from the east, you see East China Sea. You have Taiwan. You have 38 parallel. You have South China Sea, which remains the most contested area and central to ASEAN. There are so many nations from ASEAN which are affected with that. And then, of course, the territorial dispute between India and China and India and Pakistan, all 3 nuclear powers. So this remains one of the most critical areas in the world. Now, how do we now align this thing to being a net security provider in this turbulent Indo-Pacific region? To become a net security provider, India needs to contribute more to the security things than to consume, and which we have to a very large extent now be doing in Indian Ocean region and now slowly expanding into the Pacific. Now, to do that, we need not just only focus on the sea lines of communication. It also involves humanitarian assistance and disaster relief and maritime domain awareness. So all encompassing, and only then you will be able to truly become a net security provider. But in that too, if you are not self-reliant, if you are not Atmanirbhar, then you're not truly a net security provider, because then you are subject to manipulation and pressures from others. If you do not have your own military industrial base, then you really do not have a strategic autonomy with you. So for that to happen, we also heavily depend on the economic growth. And for that to happen, of course, the export. So having that say in the international arena, you need to have that self-reliance in the military industry policy or in the military industries, and which will then lead to, which cannot be done without the exports, of course. And that's where Indo-Pacific also becomes one of the key area, because in Indo-Pacific region, we in fact are the 4th or 5th largest exporters of defense. So we still have a lot of ground to cover within Indo-Pacific itself. So let's not talk about the world. So we are not even in the top 25 where we are featuring as far as the defense exports are concerned, which of course the present government has been going in a very, very concentrated way, and we are slowly building our capacity. And however, we will come to the challenges of how it can be mitigated. Then, now, the role of defense manufacturing will be taken by Professor of Practice, Professor Rawat. Over to him.
So, as we are talking about that we have to become the net security provider and not the consumer of the net security which is being provided by others, it is very important that defense manufacturing, I will also include the aerospace into the defense manufacturing as a broader term. We have to look for exports, because this is the biggest strategic tool for all the bigger developed countries like USA, France, UK. If we can make those technologies which are used by others, and since we know that India is a very big manufacturing hub, it is emerging as one, and also it is very cheap, even as compared to China. Then the entire focus will shift towards us, as has been discussed about the Indo-Pacific. Within the Indo-Pacific, also within the world, we can't say, but even in Indo-Pacific also, we are not able to provide the kind of weapons and equipments to the neighboring countries also, which they are asking for quite some time. A case in point is BrahMos. Although Philippines had asked almost about 8 years back these BrahMos, it is now only that the present government has come that we are able to now push this through. As far as the fusion of civilian and military high technology ecosystem is concerned, there is a lot of ground to be covered as of now. What is happening, I was discussing with the DG today, that there are various silos in which even the government is working. Like we have a Department of Science and Technology, we have a Ministry of Electronics and IT, then we have the Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Home Affairs. Everybody has a particular project or a particular technology base. However, the fusion is still not available. They are not converging to a single point. And that point has to be the defense manufacturing, because ultimately it is a cutting edge technologies first always come to the defense and then generally are percolated to the civilian side. This is a major avenue for security cooperation because today we see a lot of alliances of US. Majorly, it is also because of the weapons they provide, like the NATO, CETO, and all other things, because they are able to provide those equipment and items which they are themselves using to their own friendly foreign countries, and that is what we need to develop by having these technologies with us. The strengthening and complementing of trade relations will obviously come in, because when we are providing the security infrastructure to other countries, the trade relations will become stronger. The case in point is with the Philippines, Sri Lanka, all these countries where we have given our military equipment also, the trade relations have always followed, because there is a level of trust which comes in when you are providing security equipment to various countries. The spillover effects to niche technology domains, which I've already covered, that once you start using these technologies into the defense and then you come down to the civilian side, the spillover effects not only are covered to the civilian side itself, but they go into various aspects of the social life also. Next, please. How there is a rise in the defense exports since 2016-17, from 1,400 crores, we are now touched to 25,000 crores. Our vision to become $1 trillion economy, a major bulwark of that is going to be defense manufacturing, because even in US, the major harbinger of their revenue is their defense ecosystem. What we need to do is develop defense equipment trade in the region, which we have started picking up now. The countries like Cambodia, Vietnam, Philippines, and all, they are looking at us to supply them the equipment, because we were cheaper earlier also, but now we have made the cutting edge technologies and we are able to provide them at a cheaper rate. So they are now looking at us in a major way. Integrating the military and dual use state and domestic corporate verticals is basically an outcome of the what technologies we make here in India. Like case in point is that artificial intelligence and machine learning. We are at number 1 of this thing, and AI and ML is going to be used in every aspect of life. It is one technology which is in itself may not be doing anything very substantially, but when it combines with other sectors, it has got a very, very exponential effect on the ecosystem. We have to have a very comprehensive plan of manufacturing and development of ecosystem, which is a very broad subject. I'll just cover a few points of that in the next slide. Next. No, back. Next. Next. Okay. So firstly, what we need to do is that we have to have a clarity on what is indigenization policy. at the very basic level, people have taken it as the indigenization policy, as the policy to only indigenize the equipment which is already in use and which we were procuring from outside. But that is a very basic term. If we need to indigenize, the equipment, we have to start doing the basic research and development, for which government is now coming with a 6%, the policy of 6% of the outgo of any DPSU has to be spent on the research and development and innovation. Also, the government has come out with the RDI policy, that is Research Development Innovation Policy, which is giving 1 lakh crores into this ecosystem for next 5 years. So that is a humongous amount which is coming to the science and technology field. Obviously, its spillover effect is going to come into the defense manufacturing field also. We have major industrial technological bottlenecks as far as the uh, defense manufacturing is concerned. The first roadblock for everybody is that when we talk about defense, most of the people in the state government as well as the ecosystem feel that it is going to be a central subject. However, defense remains a central subject. However, the defense manufacturing is a subject which is should be in the concurrent list of state as well as the center, because although the policies are controlled by center, but basic things like land, water, electricity is in the realm of the state governments. So that needs to be looked at. As of now, about 10 states have come out with uh, specific policies towards the defense manufacturing. However, uh, out of those, I can say that only the 2 corridors of UP and Tamil Nadu are progressing in a much faster way because of the central push-ups. And few states, because they are into the technology field like Karnataka and Telangana, are also doing well into the system. But if we talk about moving to a $1 trillion economy and defense as the bulwark of it, I personally feel that every state has to come out with a defense industrial policy and also has to enable the ecosystem to produce for it. Scaling of naval manufacturing and technological capacities. Why naval manufacturing is important? Because what is happening in the Indo-Pacific is, and why the Quad was also formed, was one of the major issues is that the reduction in number of carriers which is happening. The China number of carrier groups are going to increase. The US, Japan, Australia, they are going to decrease. So we have to take up this challenge in the Indo-Pacific to create our own naval capabilities of manufacturing. As of now, a few steps has been taken. However, the major steps like making a nuclear warship within India with Indian technology is going to be a very key technology which we should look at. As far as the strategic dependence supply chain vulnerability are concerned, we all have seen what happened when the Ukraine and Russia war started. There was a major reduction in number of equipments which were coming from that side, as well as the supply chains got broken. After that, when the Israel war happened, we could see that since we are majorly dependent on the eastern bloc side on Russia and Ukraine, and on the western bloc side on Israel and US, majority of our equipment was in a questionable situation. And that is when this Make in India thing was a savior to a certain extent. But for a longer run, we need to make our country very self-reliant. I will say 100% is never possible, but we need to achieve at least a 90% plus manufacturing capability to ensure that we are not, bothered by conflicts which are happening in other countries. Role and performance of DPSUs, as we are aware that one of the major DPSUs, the Indian Ordnance Factory Code, has been broken by the government of India into 7 different DPSUs, and their performance is also under review, which needs to be reviewed in a very critical manner, like we did with DRDO, wherein from 51 labs they were reduced to 36 labs because those labs which are not performing or they were not relevant in the current context have been done away with, because it saves a lot of exchequer also, and it also gives out the technology. These technologies which can be done by the academia or local manufacturers need not be researched upon. So similarly, I'm sure out of the 7 DPSU which have come up from this breaking of this thing, personally, I feel that about 3 will go or need to go, like the ones which are producing clothes or ones which are producing food comforts. I think the Indian industry is very, very well versed today to take on that. Diplomatic and geopolitical constraints, a lot of time these are uh, policy decisions like what has happened now, the tariff, what the DG said, the tariff of 25%, this is going to have a very major impact on the defense manufacturing also, as well as now US kind of aligning with Pakistan by giving them the aid and also the equipment. We have to be very, very sure that in this geopolitical world, we are friends with everybody, but we can stand on our own. And that strength will only come through the defense indigenization or the defense manufacturing, if we have to. Next. So, yeah. So, challenges, what is the, what are the challenge state capacity? So we have to balance out that what is the capacity we are having in the region. We have to fulfill the domestic requirements as well as the requirement of the regional players or the friendly foreign countries, as we call. We should be able to take on those kind of assignments. Chinese design and infrastructure development capacity, we did not say. Anybody who has visited China will know the kind of scaling up they do and the kind of manufacturing facilities that they have developed. In the defense manufacturing field, what we are developing now is in Uttar Pradesh and Tamil Nadu. The hubs are coming up very, very well, and we need to see that that infrastructure not only matches Chinese but maybe outperforms the Chinese infrastructure. A relation with ASEAN, are, as we know, the China-ASEAN relations are very, very troubled relations. Most of the countries in ASEAN region are in one or the other way involved in a conflict with China. So we need to maybe utilize that as a major this thing, and we can become the security provider and the provider of the equipment for those countries. This is a theater of great power conflict, as we are all aware. It covers almost 65% of the humanity, as was shown earlier, and we have to put our foot forward very surely into this to ensure that we are a major player in this. Multipolarity versus strategic partnerships. I will only say that there are no permanent friends in international relations. We have to push for the multipolar world, but today we have to also remember that when a tariff is put by US, what is the impact of that? So we have to have a friendly relation. We have to develop strategic partnerships into the system, and also be open to any kind of setbacks, and we have to deal with those. A traditional land-centric approach will not work here, because Indo-Pacific is majorly is an area wherein we are more dependent on the air power as well as the naval power as a defense is concerned, and we have to look beyond the blue ocean strategy, so that we can look after this Indo-Pacific region with our military.
So, as we have seen now that India's strategic, outlook with respect to Indo-Pacific or with respect to military industry, both converges at some point. And without convergence, it's a natural convergence actually. So, but to make it sharper and more focused, a lot needs to be done. There are various reasons of convergence, but if we truly want to make this convergence work, we need to have more focus on to a specific policy areas, which will lead us to a result-oriented thing. So we will, without wasting time, I'll straight away go on to the main policy recommendations. So there are basically what we have worked out is around 6 policy recommendations, which we feel that this can be a game changer. The first one relates to our own domestic area, that is a phase model of defense indigenization. Now, what happens in defense indigenization is today, uh, the manufacturer comes up with cost cutting. So in terms of cost, he sees how much percentage I can manufacture within India, and then he says this much percentage I am doing it, so therefore it is indigenized. But then the key technology where it is, that they leave it out. And that's where it becomes a problem. So if you don't have the key technology indigenized, then it is not indigenization in true sense. Though it might be indigenization in the terms of cost, but it is not indigenization in terms of technology. So even for Tejas, we are so heavily dependent on the engine from outside. So you really, truly do not have that strategic autonomy if you don't have the key technologies under you. So what we are recommending is that it should be done in a phased manner. For each technology, you give a buffer time of say 3 to 5 years in which you say it will be in terms of cost. Once that 3 to 5 years, within that 3 to 5 years, we need to develop, and then next 5 to 10 years, it has to be completely indigenized in terms of technology. If you're not doing that, then that red line has to be drawn with the manufacturer, that it will be considered after 5 years, it will no longer be considered as indigenization unless you develop that technology. Then as a dedicated defense innovation agency, we are doing a lot in terms of defense innovation. We have IDEX, we have IDEX Prime, we have Aditi scheme, so DIO. So we have done a lot in terms of defense technology innovations and all. However, what we are recommending is a creation of another agency, which is only looking at the advanced defense technology. So ADTA, as we are recommending it to be called. So Advanced Defense Technology Agency. It should be akin to what US has done with its DARPA. You know, DARPA has a long history, which we and DG were discussing how the DARPA came up. I'm not going into that. But what DARPA is basically looking at the US agency is leapfrogging technologies. So we should have this ADTA, which is only focused on high risk, high rewards kind of a research, wherein it is looking at the technologies which can leapfrog us in terms of defense technology into the next arena rather than doing catching up. So when we talk about IDEX Prime and Aditi, they are all trying to catch up with already existing technology and to indigenize that. And there is a cap. So government spends around 25, it's coming up to 25 crores when it comes to Aditi scheme. So this is highly inadequate if you want to have something, a kind of a leapfrogging technology. So maybe 500 crores, maybe an organization which is looking at tri-services should be controlling this along with all the IITs, which then only focuses on this kind of technology which is not there in existence, and if possible, which can disrupt the entire defense technology. Then we also recommend creation of a alliance cell of strategic defense manufacturing and India's Indo-Pacific strategy alliance cell. So we have termed it SDM IPAC, so strategic defense manufacturing and Indo-Pacific alliance cell. It can be named anything, but this should form part of MEA. MEA already has a Indo-Pacific division, but it doesn't have anything to do with the defense manufacturing. Although MEA is now using the leveraging the defense attaches placed all over the world, they have started leveraging that, but it still doesn't have an concentrated focus on aligning this defense manufacturing and our Indo-Pacific strategy. So we are recommending that it should be under MEA. Maybe an armed forces officer is placed under that, who is only focusing on this and more towards the ASEAN. Then we also need to have something under Indo-Pacific division only, a strategic communication. So whatever we are doing, it needs to be communicated, maybe through defense attaches, maybe through this SDM IPK, So it should only be focusing on communicating whatever we are achieving in the defense industries, in defense technology. It should be communicated to all in Indo-Pacific so that they are also able to access it and understand what strength we have gained. Then comes the Quad. We have a specific recommendation on Quad, which Dr. Jasmeet had worked on in her thesis. I will hand over to her to explain this.
So Quad stands for Coordinated Security Dialogue. It comprises of 4 countries: India, US, Japan, and Australia. So basically, we can say this, that Quad is an anchor to Indo-Pacific. And it's very important to know that India has done a lot of initiatives under Quad, like we have MDA, that is Maritime Domain Awareness. Basically, they are working on sharing information regarding the activities which are taking place in ocean. So all they are knowing, so that they can stop all the illegal activities. So then we have, apart from this, we also have Quad logistic network. So basically, they are working on the providing relief to the natural disaster hit areas. Then we also have this Quad ports partnership. They are working on modernizing the ports, and they're also working on improving the regional connectivity through this. Then we have Metri, where they are working on providing military training. So we have a lot of initiatives under Quad, but it is important to note this, that India is valuing its it's just giving its lot of focus on the value of strategic autonomy, which means that India is avoiding Quad be a formal military alliance. So we have Quad, in which a lot of initiatives are taking, and it has come up with it has a long history, that it has come up in 2007. It was just majorly these 4 countries, they join hands together to give relief to the tsunami hit areas. Okay, and then in 2017 again it came up, and when it came up very strong, and we have a lot of initiatives under it. But in doing so, India is maintaining its strategic autonomy.
So basically, what we are recommending is that Quad should become a formal alliance. It should have a formal framework, but without military alliance. So because others were more interested in military alliance, that's how the Squad came up. In which Quad less India, but including Philippines, so that became Squad. So now Quad doesn't have a formal framework. So we are recommending that it should have a formal framework without military alliance. And the last, I would say the most important one, is the enhancement of defense capacities by strategic joint ventures. Now, in this, we are specifically mentioning that Japan, ASEAN, and India. So we have tentatively termed it as J-Indo-Pacific. Looks attractive. But then this can be a game changer, because Japan, India, ASEAN have a lot of commonalities with respect to the threat perceptions, and it's all focused on the maritime domain, and ASEAN is central to it. So if we have strategic joint ventures in which we focus on, India's manufacturing capability, Japan's technology, 2014 onwards, Japan has lifted its export ban on defense technology. So they have some niche technologies, and India has the manufacturing capability, and ASEAN has the requirement, and ASEAN also has the requirement to have indigenization, or something which it can rely on. Presently, ASEAN doesn't have anything in which even it can do coastal surveillance on its own. So it heavily relies on the Western technologies. So if we three combine and start with some joint ventures, it will be a win-win situation, and that will be a game changer with respect to the stability to be provided to Indo-Pacific. If that happens, everything changes. So for the paucity of time, I am not explaining it more, but maybe as a research paper, we will be explaining it more. So finally, to conclude, India to become truly a net security provider, a lot has to be done in the fields of military industry. And that will only happen when our policy is aligned. So we have come up with 6 major recommendations. I am sure DG would take a note and then take it forward. And as a last thing which I would leave you with is the Indo-Pacific. We truly believe that this could be a game changer to the entire region. Thank you.